Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Pull up a chair, get comfortable, and let's treat this like a private mentorship session. I've spent years analyzing the markets, and today we are looking at the absolute turning point in a trader's career. We're talking about making that massive leap from someone who occasionally catches a lucky good trade to a truly consistent professional. Our source material today lays out a really foundational truth. Just because you are acting in the capacity of a trader, clicking buy or sell, does not mean you've learned the appropriate way to think about what you do. The best traders out there aren't separated by what they do or when they do it. They are separated entirely by how they think.
So, if trading is so easy, why is it so incredibly difficult to master? Man, it's literally the most agonizing question in this profession. Experiencing just a few winning trades can convince almost anybody that trading is just incredibly easy. I mean, recall your own experiences. Those times when money just flowed into your account and you suddenly thought you were the next Warren Buffett. It feels totally effortless. So, if we've all experienced how easy it absolutely can be, why are so many traders at their wits' end grappling with this obvious contradiction? Why can't we just make what we've learned work for us over and over again?
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the irony that trips up most amateurs. Trading can absolutely be as fun and effortless as your best experiences, but experiencing that consistently is entirely a function of your perspective and your mindset. If you depend on the outside conditions of the market to make you happy, meaning, you only feel good when the market hands you a win, it is extremely unlikely you will ever experience happiness or profits on a consistent basis. Professional traders, on the other hand, well, they are consistent as a natural expression of who they are internally. Their consistency doesn't rely at all on what the market happens to be doing today. Our source establishes this absolute core premise. Consistency is a state of mind. The solutions are in your mind. They are not out there in the market. Winning and consistency are states of mind in the exact same way that happiness, having fun, and satisfaction are states of mind. You can try to force consistency without having the appropriate internal beliefs, but your results won't be any different than if you tried to force yourself to be happy when you're actually miserable. It simply doesn't work. Your state of mind is always a byproduct of your beliefs.
Now, this brings us to a really fascinating abstract distinction. You cannot try to be consistent. I know that sounds wild, but the best traders don't try to be consistent, they simply are consistent. Think back to your very best trades. You didn't have to force them, right? There was no struggle. You saw exactly what you needed to see, you acted, and you were just completely in the moment. When you're in the flow like that, you aren't trying, because everything you know about the market is just completely available to you.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down the dangers of trying to force results. The fascinating and honestly often frustrating truth is how the very act of trying acts as this huge psychological roadblock. When you try to get what you want from the market, it indicates that there is a degree of internal resistance or struggle. You are literally attempting to impose your will on the market. This perspective is just fraught with difficulties because it immediately takes you out of the opportunity flow. The market is just offering information. It's you who's creating the struggle. And here is exactly what happens when you impose your expectations on the market and the market doesn't comply. Your mental defense mechanisms kick right in. Our minds are biologically wired to avoid both physical and emotional pain. So when the market doesn't behave the way that fulfills your expectations, your brain automatically blocks or obscures that threatening information. You will literally pick and choose market data that confirms what you want to happen. And trust me, I've caught myself doing it early in my own career, just to shield myself from the emotional discomfort of being wrong. 95%. This is a hard truth, but an absolutely essential one for your development. The threat of pain generates fear, and fear is the source of 95% of the errors you are likely to make. Just let that massive number sink in for a second. You literally cannot be consistent if you are constantly making errors driven by the fear that what you expect won't happen. In this state, everything you attempt will seem like you're struggling against the market. But actually, scratch that, the market isn't against you. The struggle is entirely inside your own mind.
So the crucial point is, how do we stop this cycle? Well, the answer is incredibly profound. You have to learn to truly accept the risk. Now, most traders assume that simply putting on a trade means they've accepted the risk. That couldn't be further from the truth. Accepting the risk means accepting the consequences of your trades without emotional discomfort or fear. If you are afraid of the consequences, your perception of the market's information is going to be filtered right through that fear, basically guaranteeing you create the exact experience you are trying so hard to avoid.
When you adopt the thinking strategy of a professional, you create a completely new relationship with the market that disassociates trading from the traditional pain of being wrong or losing. If the possibility of losing or leaving money on the table doesn't cause your mental defense mechanisms to kick in, then the market literally has no power to take you out of the opportunity flow. You won't be trying to get anything from the market, and you won't be trying to avoid anything either. You will just be available to take full advantage of whatever conditions you define as opportunities.
But here is the ultimate challenge for anyone watching this explainer. How do you accept the risks of trading without emotional discomfort, when at the very moment you perceive the risk, you simultaneously feel that discomfort and fear, right? How do you remain confident when you are absolutely certain you could lose money? After all, your fear feels completely justified and completely rational the moment you decide to interact with the market. To answer this, our source text provides just a brilliant analogy. Imagine a man who is deathly afraid of snakes. He's at a dinner party with his 3-year-old daughter, and the host's child brings out a pet snake. The father practically leaps across the room, knocking over chairs in pure absolute terror. But his little daughter? She is completely enthralled, probably trying to pet the thing. The father was shocked. He assumed his fear was a universal reality. But without having been taught to be afraid or having a prior painful experience, his daughter's natural reaction was pure, unadulterated fascination. And this brilliantly illustrates the biggest myth about professional traders. Most traders assume the best traders are also afraid of losing, but somehow neutralize their fear with an inordinate amount of courage, self-control, and nerves of steel. But that just isn't true. Needing courage implies an internal conflict where one force is counteracting another. If you truly accept the risk, you don't perceive the market as threatening. If there's nothing threatening, there's nothing to fear. If you aren't afraid, you literally don't need courage or nerves of steel. The snake, just like the market, isn't inherently terrifying. It just is. So how do we get there? Think of your mental environment like software code. You could have thousands of lines of perfectly written code, but if just one character is out of place, it can completely ruin the performance of the entire system. Finding that one misplaced character takes real expertise, but once you fix it, everything runs smoothly. For most traders watching this, you might only be one mental click or degree away in perspective from the ideal mindset, but that one misplaced assumption about the nature of trading is holding back your entire system. Let's move to and see how this builds. So how do we actually debug our mental system? People usually describe shifting these internal assumptions as an aha experience. You know, the moment the light bulb goes on, the world suddenly seems totally different. You might say, man, why didn't I see this before? It was right in front of me. This happens when we locate a contradictory belief, acknowledge it, and finally align our mental environment with the reality of the market. But be warned, mere awareness is just not enough. Being aware of a concept doesn't automatically make it a functional part of your identity. You can't just assume that agreeing with a trading principle means you believe it at a level where you can actually act on it. Going back to our snake analogy, the terrified father could learn that the pet snake is completely harmless. He could rationally acknowledge it, but could he touch it? Probably not. The awareness that the snake is safe and his deep-seated fear of snakes exist side by side as a massive contradiction. In trading, I hear it literally all the time. People pounding the table, claiming, I am a risk taker, while simultaneously trading in a way that actively avoids all risk. That is holding conflicting beliefs. It's exactly like driving with one foot slammed on the accelerator and the other on the brake. Holding on to these contradictory beliefs turns learning how to trade into pure exasperation. Our source text points to the classic 1960s movie Cool Hand Luke. Luke is in a chain gang, constantly defying the prison bosses. They force him to do agonizing work and give him intermittent beatings, constantly asking, have you got your mind right yet, Luke? Eventually, after immense suffering, he tells them he has his mind right. Many traders are honestly just like Luke. They try to have it their way by beating the market, and as a result, they get financially and emotionally pulverized. Make no mistake, the market will relentlessly test your conflicting beliefs. You will endure the financial equivalence of those beatings until you finally realize that the market is just a mirror reflecting your internal software. There are easier, infinitely more satisfying ways of getting what you want from the market, but you simply cannot bypass the psychological work. So as we wrap up this explainer, I leave you with this absolutely crucial question to reflect on before your next trade. Are you finally ready to stop fighting the market, resolve your internal contradictions, and do the work to get your mind right?